So there's a few good ideas that could come out of that.
To submit that.
Okay.
I'm gonna put something on.
Thursday, I think I'm gonna be
I just thought if you had
traveling
something,
Thursday
like, I'm
night.
not desperate. I want.
Okay.
Shoot.
So far. Good morning and welcome to the Berry County Board of Commissioners meeting, Committee of the Whole for October 1st, 2024. If you would please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We seem a little tired this morning. We did stay up and watch the Lions win last night till about 11:30, quarter till 12. So if I look like I'm tired, I might be. So reports from state and county officials. Do we have any state and county officials who would like to give an update to the board?
Swear in a new undersheriff, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
You right here. Do solemnly swear or affirm that you support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and that you'll faithfully discharge the duties of the office of undersheriff in and for the city of Hastings, county of Berry, and state of Michigan, according to the best of your ability.
I do.
Welcome aboard. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Want us to sign now or after?
Doesn't matter, you can do it either. Did you have another report or update, or is that?
No, I was just, sorry about that.
Okay, any other state or county officials like to give an update to the board?
Morning. Thanks for doing this at the beginning of the meeting so I can get to my next meeting. Appreciate that. So Courtney Zinni, Executive Director, Berry County Commission on Aging. It's been a while since I've come and given an update, so I just wanted to give a short update. As you all know, the millage did pass in August. I can't believe it's October already. I'm a little behind here. And so that has given us some consistency and some reliable funding, while our state and federal funding is a little bit iffy right now. So we're happy that that happened, and we're very excited for the support that was shown by the community. And then we also celebrated our 50th anniversary in August. And we had over 220 friends join us for lunch out on the lawn, and that was a really great time as well. So just nice to be able to celebrate those two things at the same time. So what I really came to update you about was the new facility project. I know we had been kind of quiet because we were focused on the millage and our anniversary, but that doesn't mean that things were not happening. So we have plans that are about 90% complete. Working with Consumers Energy currently to figure out some stuff beyond my head, but where lines are going to run in that, so that we can finish up those plans, the site plans and everything. And so we hope to, in the near future, put it out to bid so that we can get that maximum project budget and get that in line and make sure that we are at a number that we all feel good with. So those are the next steps for right now. We have been doing some fundraising within the community, so we have opened a fund at the Community Foundation for this project. We have currently just under $800,000 sitting there. We have commitments totaling another $1 million. So certainly starting good progress towards that fundraising. So any questions or anything?
Questions from commissioners?
Thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Hopefully we'll be back in another 4 or 5 weeks and with another update. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney.
Yep.
Additional reports from state or county officers? Hearing none, limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
I didn't know if this is an official thing or not, so I figured public comment's safer. Jim Dell, Berry County Drain Commission. First of all, thank you for the salary bump that is in this resolution. Granted, I had an agreement with Michael 2 years ago that they were gonna do it at that time, but whatever, better late than never. Now, as for the bad stuff. I'm not complaining about the salary, but I do find offense that the Drain Commission, with all the responsibilities we have, is the lowest paid elected official in the county, and second lowest of department heads. I'm gonna go over all this stuff in January when we have the Drain 101, so you guys can get some understanding of the oversight we have to have for this county. The countywide officials abide by relevant county policies. If you guys put money in 804, we will follow your policies. You've yet to do that, and we will not be following that policy specifically. Basically purchasing. When we need stuff, and we have our own money that we create by doing the work in our drains, we buy the stuff, period. Now, Luella did bring up a point. If it's a hard asset that has to be insured by the county, I don't mind following them policies. Lastly, county manager, he's an administrator. I think you guys ought to fix that in the resolution. Second of all, does this mean I get to only work 5 days a week instead of 6 or 7? Because I know Eric will work weekends once in a great while. We work it most of the time. I think this resolution is a waste of your time. I hate to say it. Looks like you guys spend a lot of time and money on it, but you cannot limit county officials to anything. You got to remember, we are at the same level as county commissioners. The only thing you provide us with is salaries and pens and papers. Thank you.
Okay. Additional public comment? Hearing none, we will move ahead with our agenda. The chair would entertain a motion for approval of the September 3rd, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Colton, support by Hatfield for approval of September 3rd, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Next up, Heather Wing.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm not sure which glasses I need, and I think Jim left his phone. He'll be back.
Can we all take a picture of ourselves real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do a
That would
group
be
selfie.
cute. Okay, so this morning, you have in front of you the purchase agreement and the conservation easement for the Butler farm and for the Carpenter farm. This has been a long time, well, not for the Butler farm, but for the Carpenter farm, it's been a long time coming. They finally have all of the things that they need to do on their end, as far as the landowner, cleanup and things all tidied up, and they are ready to close. So, it has been, like I said, a long time coming on the Carpenter farm. So, they hope to have all of the closing documents, taken care of before the end of the year. So, it's just a matter of who gets their stuff all signed first, so.
Okay, so we are basically today just putting the motion for the approval of the purchase agreement.
And authorizing the chair to sign when the day comes.
Authorizing the chair to sign it, okay.
So, and they'll have a typical retail closing where the title company is there, has the documents, and the money gets exchanged and everything, and that'll come sometime in the future. But you need to approve the conservation easement and the purchase agreement, which the state of Michigan has given us grant money to purchase the development rights for the Butler farm. Plus there's ASEP funding for the Butler farm and then ASEP funding for the Carpenter farm.
Sounds like things are going well.
Yes.
Okay. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Smelter?
There's no money changed hands yet, though,
Nope.
on either one of these.
Nope. No, we hit a couple of glitches along the way. The Carpenter farm, like most farms in the last 100 years, had some, they had lost a barn and they moved like big chunks of concrete out into a fence row, and the environmental aspect of the inspection didn't like that, so they had to move those before they could close, and just little things like that. And then the Butler farm had a glitch with a gas and oil rights and a millage, or not a millage, a mortgage. And so it was just a few little things that needed to be tidied up, and we're hoping that everything will be done before the end of the year.
A lot more work than you thought, and when I read these packets and pages and pages and pages.
Oh my gosh, those packets can be like this big by the time you're done with the survey and the pictures and the baseline pictures and the this and the that, and it's craziness. And I'm so thankful for Barry Lonick, which he will be celebrating a huge milestone with these two parcels. He will hit his 100th property conserved, and I think he's hitting 1,000 acres, or is it 10,000 acres? Something crazy. So he's very excited for these two projects to be completed.
Awesome. Additional questions from commissioners? Commissioner Colton?
Thank you. I know it's in here, but for each of the properties, the Carpenter and Butler properties, how many acres will be conserved for each of these, and then how much will they get paid for those?
Each of them is different. The Carpenter property is approximately 400 acres off the top of my head. We had tried twice to get them funded through the state grant, and both times we failed. But they are getting money through the ASEP fund, which is a federal fund. They are only getting about $300,000 for their easement. They've donated the rest, so they've donated like $700,000. At least that's what the old numbers were. We had to appraise their property because it has been so long since we started this project. The Butler farm is about 200, 230, somewhere in there. And they are getting quite a bit more because they got federal funding and the state grant. So I don't know exactly their dollar amounts. It's with all of the funds, it's right around that $550,000, $600,000 range. They adjust things based on if they pull. So if they decide they want to leave like an envelope where like a granddaughter wants to build a house, they pull that many acres out of the application, and then they don't get paid for those acres because they've excluded those from their conservation easement. So I don't know exactly the number that they've excluded.
Okay, so I was just trying to understand how you do the math and stuff. So the Carpenter farm, I assume, was valued at about $1 million. They donate $700,000, and then $300,000 comes in to pay for that. That's how that works?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the county is the fiduciary, and then we hold the conservation easement. We hold the development rights. So we're like the keeper of the Pandora's box, so to speak, of the development rights of all of these parcels. And we are charged with monitoring them.
See, thank you.
Okay. Additional questions?
Just a
Yes.
question to follow up on the monitoring. How often are the farms monitored, and by who?
Right now, it's by one of the volunteers on the Conservation Easement Board. And there used to be a document yearly that had to be submitted, but I haven't seen communication come back from MDARD on that. So I will be following up with them just to make sure that we're not behind on somebody's reporting. It really could fit into planning and zoning and the enforcement officer's tasks, because it's the same kind of thing. He drives past the parcel and makes sure there's not a house in the middle of what's supposed to be a field. It's pretty easy paperwork, so.
Thanks.
Okay. And are we hoping to have these wrapped up by the end of the year, or do you think it's going to go into '25?
No, we're pretty sure they'll be ready to go.
Okay.
They've had their final visits by ASAP. The farms are contiguous, so it was very easy to do their final checks and stuff. It was like, oh, I'm here, turn this way, it's Butler, this way, it's Carpenter. So when the NRCS officer came out and looked at stuff, it was really easy to get things completed and we didn't have to do 2 visits. And there is something that needs to be changed with the baseline report for Butler, based on an NRCS change in what they need documented. But that should take like a half a day to do.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I've been assured.
There are no further questions. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the purchase agreement and conservation easements between Berry County and Susan K. Butler, trustee of the Alvin E. and Susan K. Butler Trust for property located in Maple Grove Township, and authorize the chair to sign it.
I'd like to make that motion.
Support. Motion by Colton, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the purchase agreement and conservation easements between Berry County and Susan K. Butler, trustee of the Alvin E. and Susan K. Butler Trust for property located in Maple Grove Township, and authorize the chair to sign it. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Next, do we need to talk in detail about the Carpenter property, or is it kind of the same?
It's kind of the same. It's been a long process and we're just trying to get it taken care of.
Okay.
They jumped through some hoops this summer with cleaning up their farm from decades of what farms used to do, and it's ready to go.
Okay, perfect. Additional questions? The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the purchase agreement and conservation easements between Berry County and Vanessa S. Carpenter for property located in Maple Grove and Assyria Township, and authorize the chair to sign it.
So moved. Second, Campbell.
Motion by Dennison, support by Campbell, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the purchase agreement and conservation easements between Berry County and Vanessa S. Carpenter for property located in Maple Grove and Assyria Townships, and authorize the chair to sign it. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
We can have the big party like we did and get everybody together and get Barry there and
We'll
sign all the
see how
docs.
that goes.
and-
If we can get it all done at the same time, it would be great.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm
Good to
not
see you
sure
again.
how mobile Mrs. Carpenter is these days. She's looking at having a back surgery, so.
We can come to her house, but I expect some cookies.
Okay, let's see what we can do.
Next up, Luella, Dennison, and Stephanie Lehman to talk about the proposed 2025 health care plans. Good morning.
Good morning. Good
Boy,
morning.
does a year go fast.
Yes, we're here a little earlier this year. We usually don't come before you until the first meeting in November, so we're about a month ahead of schedule. Perhaps we can do open enrollment a little bit earlier this year. So Stephanie's with me. Stephanie is on the Healthcare Cost Containment Committee and has been for years, and is a very valued member. So I'll just kind of start off with a little bit of overview, and Stephanie can also chime in and comment. You will notice in your packet, we have the plans in there that are being proposed for 2025, and the last page of your packet compares the plans that we have this year to the plans that we're proposing for next year, and it shows what those employer and employee costs will be. The committee did decide next year to keep all of the same plans that we have this year with one exception. We did drop one plan, so next year there'll only be 4, but they'll be the same 4 that have been available this year. So no big changes on that front. As you may recall, last year, the county joined the West Michigan Health Insurance Pool. That pool continues to grow. There are over 180 organizations now. It's a self-funded pool. Having all of those organizations gives them huge buying power, and they're able to provide a lot of add-on programs that you can't find anywhere else. So you'll notice with the rates, there's a significant increase in what employees will be asked to pay next year for the plans, and that's 2 reasons that both hit at the same time, unfortunately. One, there was a huge increase in the premium costs for the health plans. In the general market, Blue Cross rates went up and Priority Health rates went up by 13 to 14%. The pool was able to have an increase, average increase of 8.7%. Because Berry County is new to the pool and we don't have enough history to determine what our loss ratio is, we get the pool-wide average of 8.7%. That coupled with, as you know, we do the employer contribution based on the hard caps that were set in the state legislation. And every year that number changes as far as the percentage of increase. And for 2025, we had the lowest increase in the cap that there has been since they started, since they instituted the cap, at only 0.2%. So those two things combined resulted in a significant increase.
I think that it's important that the board understands that we don't have a full year of claims data to review. Typically, our loss ratio is higher than the national average, and so if we can continue to see this trend into next year, we'll be here reporting the same thing, significant increases. Had we stayed and been a direct purchaser from Blue Cross like we were in previous years, we would have been looking at about a 14% rate increase. So this being a part of the West Michigan pool saved us, we think, on average about 5%. Yes, and then the one plan that we chose to no longer provide is because every year the amounts for the deductibles, for the HSA, the deductibles are set at the federal level. We don't have any control over that. And if you look at plan, the second plan listed, the 175, 176, it was very close to that plan. The deductibles were $1,600 and I think $3,600. But then next year that's gonna go up and it's gonna be $1,850. And so since they were so close, and the out-of-pocket maximum was significantly lower on this one, we opted to get rid of the fifth plan and to keep the second plan.
Okay.
The costs, the cost to each employee for payroll deduction was relatively comparable.
Never seems to change. Cost has just spiked, but I mean, if we've saved about 50% of what the cost increases would have been, that in itself was worth a switch last year, so. But still, every year, and I'm trying to remember back to last year when they were talking about the caps and the averages for the people, and it didn't seem like it was 8.7. Is that just because we don't have the data for a year that our caps were higher? Because it's.
Go ahead.
So the caps would refer to the PA 152 legislation where the state sets what public employers can contribute to health insurance. And that rate changes every year. The Michigan Treasury, Department of Treasury sets that rate based on a number of factors. So that does change, and if you recall last year, I think we saw the biggest increase in the cap that we've ever seen. And then this year we had the lowest increase that we've ever seen. So there's, that is, you know, the hard cap, but then the percentage increase in premiums, you're correct. I mean, we did save a lot by being part of the pool, but even the pool saw a 8.7% increase for next year. Part of this, not completely, part of this has to do with the GPL-1 drugs for weight loss and diabetes that has just exploded, and the cost of those is quite significant. So you will see, any of you that are on a Blue Cross plan or in the pool, we're probably notified that Blue Cross is going to stop covering those medications. So, but that did contribute to the increase in the premiums for all plans next year.
So all 180 organizations that are part of this had the same increase of 8.7? Or just Berry County because of our lack of history with them at this point?
That's the average amongst, the 8.7 is the average amongst everybody in the pool. So think of it like going to Sam's Club or Costco for purchasing, we're buying in bulk, all is one, and so that's why we can get the lower rates. We, in Berry County, don't have a whole year's worth of claims data being in the pool, so we receive the lowest end of increases. I'm certain there are people in the pool whose loss ratio would have been significant, or, you know, maybe they had, you know, typically we track, not individuals, so I don't wanna scare anybody by that, but accounts that have more than $50,000 in claims. Those individuals or contracts on our account that have more than $50,000 would be what's considered a super user. And the trend that we've seen over the last couple years is pharmacy, not just with the GLP-1 drugs, but now there's the GLP-2 class, Humira, like a lot of those more expensive pharmaceuticals. That has trended, the trend for that over the last 5 to 7 years has been astronomical. I am just projecting that I anticipate next year, if this trend continues and the hard cap stays low, and this continues where healthcare continues to be on the huge increase that it's on now, our increases have the potential to be higher. What I'm saying is we were fortunate to receive the 8.7% increase on an average because we didn't have that full year's worth of claims data. We typically run at an elevated loss ratio compared to our surrounding areas.
Interesting, okay. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Smelter?
When you said they're going to quit doing these drugs, they're not quitting diabetes drugs, are they? And not covering diabetes?
It's just a class of drugs, I think that, so I don't know the details of what, you know, what's on the list and what's not on the list, but.
So if you have a diagnosis for diabetes and you're taking Ozempic, that's to, you know, treat and control your diabetes, you know, that's a GLP-1 drug, and there's weight loss benefits that come from that. So the manufacturer has rebranded that as Wegovy. And so Wegovy is prescribed for weight loss. And so my perception of that is that Blue Cross is no longer going to cover the stuff that is being prescribed specifically for weight loss.
That's what I was thinking too. Thank you.
I mean, that's subject to change, but until there's a generic, right, or until the insurance companies put enough pressure on the drug makers to reduce the costs. But that's the trend right now.
Okay. Additional questions?
Real quick, how was the payment in lieu of health insurance determined?
The payment in lieu of health insurance is determined by the amount of the hard cap increase. So we've said that the percentage that the hard cap goes up is the percentage that the payment in lieu of will go up. So payment in lieu of for next year will go up by 0.2%.
And that's been the policy or the history since the hard cap came to fruition. Is that 2012 or 2014?
2013, I think, was the first year that they set the cap. I think the actual legislation was maybe in 2012, but.
And was that initial amount that we could pay as a payment in lieu set by the state, or was that
It's
a
not, no,
policy
that's
decision?
completely a Berry County policy, and that could be changed by you at any time. I mean, it is in the bargaining agreements, it is in the personnel policies, but that's completely a Berry County policy, and I'm kinda glad you bring that up, because, as you know, with the Affordable Care Act, employers were told, it initially started that you had to provide health insurance to, you know, people that worked a certain percentage of full-time. You had to provide health insurance to that person within 90 days or you'd be penalized. We started when that occurred, we put it at 60 days to make sure that we, for no reason would we ever go over the 90. As you know, probably in the last year or so, we changed that now, and we're saying that employees who are eligible can receive health insurance on day of hire. The policy for payment in lieu of is a Berry County policy, and you could do it or not do it, or set it at any amount that you want, and it is not governed by the Affordable Care Act. So the county does not have to provide payment in lieu of to people when they are hired. We have a policy that it would start 6 months after hire. And we also have a policy that if you work less than 100%, it gets prorated. So unlike the health insurance with the Affordable Care Act that says if you work 75% of full time, we have to provide the health insurance, then we have to provide it at 100%. The payment in lieu of, you can determine when it starts, you can determine how much it is, whether you're gonna offer it or not.
What percentage of our employees take the payment in lieu?
A lot.
It's about a third.
Really?
If I remember right, when these plans were originally set, or the payment in lieu of, wasn't it like 15% of the cost of the premium?
Right.
Yes. So it's a cost savings to the county or to every department to not, you know, to pay that 15% of the cost of the premium versus the entire premium.
Right.
So, yeah, it's significant. We have a significant amount of employees that elect to opt out, if you will.
What I was trying to just envision is rather not, just being familiar with how that's typically handled in the private sector. Rather or not we could increase that amount, the number of employees that don't take health insurance if we paid a higher in lieu of payment.
I will say when we do surveys with other counties that our payment in lieu of is quite a bit higher than what anybody offers. But to your point, it's been effective at
Right.
getting people, if they have other coverage options, to say, hey, you know, it's worth it for me to get covered under the other plan, and it's less than paying the premium, so.
Absolutely. Additional questions? I appreciate your work on this every year. It's a lot of details. It's a fast-changing environment. Unfortunately, it changes for the worse every year. It seems like it's always going up.
It's cyclical. We'll have a year where we have a little bit of a win, like we had last year, and then it trends down, trends down, trends down, and then we'll have a year or two where we have a little bit of a win, and it's the nature of the beast now.
Yeah, always entertaining. We appreciate your work on this, though, that this is a big benefit to the county to see these numbers and be able to take care of our employees the way we do. So the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2025 proposed Berry County health plans for Berry County employees as recommended by the Berry County Healthcare Cost Containment Committee.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Getty to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2025 proposed Berry County health plans for Berry County employees as recommended by the Berry County Healthcare Cost Containment Committee. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Next up, Jim McManus with a PA 116 request. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. So we have a PA 116 request for you today. It is the first one for the year, which is somewhat surprising, but they tend to be cyclical as well. This is for Shane Hickey in Section 25 of Castleton Township. The property is planned for agricultural use. This went before the Planning Commission at last month's meeting, and they recommended unanimously that it be approved by you.
Okay. You've seen several of these, just not this year.
Right.
They have been fairly common to come across, so, and nothing unusual with this, I'm assuming, standard?
And not, it's mostly 80% tillable ground, and it fits all the requirements.
Okay. Okay. Questions for Mr. McManus? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of PA 116 application Farmland and Open Space Preservation 24-1 for Shane Hickey, located in Section 25 of Castleton Township.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hatfield, support by
Campbell?
Campbell? Okay. Support by everybody. Motion by Hatfield, support by Campbell to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of PA 116 application Farmland and Open Space Preservation 24-1 for the Shane Hickey property located in Section 25 of Castleton Township. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Meshia Rose.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I also stayed up late last night watching the game, so if I stumble over my words.
It was a happy
Now you
ending.
know
We're
why.
happy to see it. It was in question there for a minute, but it worked out, so.
All right. So I'm here to present to you today apportionment, which, as you're aware, I meet with you guys twice a year annually. The first time is for equalization in April, and that's primarily just to do with assessed valuations for each of the local units. And then I meet with you in October for apportionment, which is strictly regarding the spread of millage rates across the taxable values for each of the 47 taxing entities in the county that levy a property tax. So the process is that each taxing entity has to complete Form L4029 tax rate request. It's the same form that we complete for our tax levies here. And I review each of those to ensure that nobody is requesting the maximum, nobody is requesting more than the maximum permitted under Headley. And I've done that. I've made sure everybody is certified or properly certified, and then I compile all the results into this report. So that's what all of this is. It's essentially the same information, just stated differently, because different users use this. So just a couple of things I did want to mention, that Carlton Township does have a millage proposal coming up in November. So unfortunately, I have to meet with you by statute in October. And then if that millage proposal passes, then you'll see me again for the same thing next month. If it doesn't pass, then you won't see me. So the second thing I wanted to mention is that this year, there's something a little bit different because of the changes that the legislator made to how disabled veteran taxable values are reported. The taxable values in this report might seem a little bit higher than what is actually collected on. So our veterans who receive a disabled veteran exemption will continue to receive that exemption, but the taxable values just remain in place. So it's skewed a little bit higher. And I wanted to make mention of that because I know that a lot of local officials use this report for budgeting purposes, and I wanted to make sure that they knew that that taxable value was higher than what they're actually going to collect on. So, all right, so the first couple of pages are just the millage rates according to the township and school district. There is a combination of over 90 different millage rates that a taxpayer in Berry County might pay, depending on where they're located. And so that's basically what the first couple of pages are. It just lists all those different combinations. And then on page, I believe it's 9, I just summarize those millage rates according to the type of millage rates. So on page 9, you'll see by local unit, and I've organized it from highest to lowest just because I'm a visual person and that's how I like to do my reports. And then after that is the total millage by ISD. So these are the various ISDs or RESAs that collect a tax levy in Berry County. And then after that is the total PRE millage by school district. So PRE is just the principal residence exemption. These are the rates that somebody would pay to the schools if they own and occupy their property. If they don't own and occupy their property, they actually pay a much higher rate than that. And then finally, that last summary, that graph just organizes all the different combinations of millage rates according to principal residence exemption from lowest to highest in the county. And then after that, it's just a statement of all the taxable values, that these millage rates will be spread across. And then I've organized it by township, and this is really for use by the local township officials to make it easier for them to balance. And I have one for each of the 17 units, and then there's a summary at the end of the totals. So same information, just organized differently throughout.
It's a lot of information. It's a lot of numbers. It's interesting seeing City of Hastings at 16 all the way down to Assyria at point whatever it is.
Yes.
It's just mind-blowing to see the difference in how they're set up and how they're taxed based on if you're in a city, a village, whatever the case is, so.
Yep.
And the PRE differences too, so.
Yep, yep.
Questions for Meshia? Now that you've got a chance to study that, there will be a test. So, yeah. It's a lot of information. If there are no questions, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2024 apportionment report.
So moved. Support, Doster.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Doster, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2024 apportionment report. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Meshia.
Thank you.
It's a lot of information, but the reports are always good, and I like the charts and the graphs. That makes sense to me, too, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Eric, good morning.
Sure. Commission.
Looks
Kind
like
of weird to
you're
be kind of quiet today. Kind of nice to sit in the back and watch everybody else do their thing.
There you go.
Not used to that role.
The question is, did you stay up till late?
Of course I did, and then a little bit more after that, so.
Just so we understand.
Yeah, it was definitely a late night. In front of you, you have a resolution naming a trustee and alternate trustee for the West Michigan Pool Board. Basically, I'm asking you to replace myself, or asking to replace Michael with myself, and then appoint Luella as the alternate trustee. Pretty straightforward. It's not a requirement for us as part of the pool.
Questions? That is pretty straightforward. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 24-23, naming trustee and alternate trustee to serve on the Board of Trustees for the West Michigan Health Insurance Pool.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Dennison, support by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 24-23, naming trustee and alternate trustee to serve on the Board of Trustees for the West Michigan Health Insurance Pool. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Next up, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Dr. Thomas Koster, D.O., effective 8/1/24 as Deputy Medical Examiner for Berry County.
Yeah, we had a resignation at Western. Dr. Brooks resigned, and they hired Dr. Koster 8/1. So we're just asking him to be appointed as a deputy medical examiner. In your report, you see a list of those individuals who are already the deputy medical examiners for the county. So just need approval of Dr. Koster.
Just another piece of business. Okay.
Yep.
The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Dr. Thomas Koster, D.O., effective 8/1/24 as a Deputy Medical Examiner for Berry County.
So moved.
Motion by Getty, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Dr. Thomas Koster, D.O., effective 8/1/24 as Deputy Medical Examiner for Berry County. Additional discussion?
Related to that issue, before you leave today, let me know if you really want to go and visit the Western Michigan facilities. Commissioner Doster and I were the only one listed, so we're going to put that off for now. Okay. But if you want to go see it, please let me know so we can get dates figured out later.
I'm good.
No interest in touring the morgue?
This is like the powered parachute, Bob?
I've been there on Viston once.
Yeah.
I won't remember that.
If not, it's no big deal. Just, we want to make sure you get the opportunity.
And I've heard it's a fascinating tour, that it's really informational and good, but.
And you certainly want to thank them for their
Yeah.
hospitality.
Sorry.
All right, if there is no additional discussion, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Next up, appointment of City of Hastings representative to Solid Waste Oversight Committee.
The City of Hastings appointed City Manager Sarah Moyer Kale as their representative to the Solid Waste Oversight Committee for a 3-year term, beginning 11/1 of this year and expiring of 10/31 of 27. So we're asking you to accept that appointment.
Okay. Is this going to change when we get into materials management next year? Or is that not quite next year, or is it still?
That's still, I know Rachel's still working on that issue, so we're waiting to hear when that slate comes forward, but I think Sarah will continue on in that role, and you'll get a new slate at that time.
She will, at this point, we're working on filling the required slots under the new legislation, which frankly is a little ridiculous that the state is trying to be that specific about who is required to sit on that new board. It kind of flies in the face of reason, but we are attempting to be reasonably creative in filling those slots, and Sarah would continue in that capacity. Anything else you want to add?
Sarah's just a great member of that board. She's serves as the treasurer and contributing.
Catherine and I just sit back and.
I see
Is that what we do?
I see occasional updates from Rachel, I just,
I think we've now got people identified to fill all of the required slots. Part of the problem is that there are no slots for some of our current members who have been very active. So they're going to have to attend as non-voting members going forward, and that's very unfortunate. I think for them, luckily, they're all smart enough to understand that we're playing a political game with the state, with the required members of the committee, but we still need their expertise and their volunteerism if we're going to continue to work effectively. But I think we've got the required seats now all identified and committed.
okay. Is there a timeline?
It keeps
It
kind
keeps
of
changing.
moving.
Yeah, but they.
We'll meet the deadlines
Yeah.
that are set for us.
Okay. I keep seeing this, it was like a 5-year plan or something, but
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll hear, get an update from Rachel at some point, so.
Yeah.
Okay, additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint City Manager Sarah Moyer Kale to serve on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee in the position representing the City of Hastings for a 3-year term that begins on 11/1/24 and expires 10/31/27, as approved by the Hastings City Council on August 12, 2024.
Support Campbell.
Motion by Smelker, support by Campbell, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint City Manager Sarah Moyle Kale to serve on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee in a position representing the City of Hastings for a 3-year term that began on 11/1/24 and expires 10/31/27, as approved by the Hastings City Council on August 12, 2024. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can we take 5 minutes after this?
We can take 5 minutes. Okay. The board will be at recess for 5 to 7 minutes. come back in session. Next up, elected official salaries. Would you like to lead on this?
Sure. Since we dissolved the Compensation Commission, we now have to assume the responsibility for setting elected officials and commissioners' compensation ourselves. The committee has met twice going over some recommendations and some research that Eric and Luella put together for us, which has culminated in the information that you see in the packet in front of you. Basically, with us now assuming that responsibility with the elected officials other than commissioners, we can now choose to make changes more frequently than what we could with the Compensation Commission. So our primary objective in putting this recommendation together was to give the elected officials the same increases that we have granted to other employees over the last 2 years. Recognizing that going forward, we can make additional adjustments if and when we feel it appropriate to do so. One of the things that may influence us in when and if we do that is the fact that we're going into a year where we will be renegotiating contracts, and we can take a look at what we do for the other employees in those contract negotiations. We'll also have a chance to see what the economic environment is doing, and we may also choose at some point to go ahead with a compensation study that will allow us to take a look at job functions more individually and try to determine whether or not where we should be with all of our employees. Commissioners are a little different in that we still are unable to make changes in our compensation during the term of office. So we have from now until the end of the year to put a compensation plan in place for commissioners that will then govern our compensation for the next 4 years. Where was I going with that? I called it a plan because we can approve a plan that has mandated increases over the term over those 4 years, but that too has to be set before the end of this year, even though the payments will change potentially over the next 4 years. So our recommendation for commissioners does 2 things. One, it gives us approximately the same increase that we're giving the other elected officials, that makes up for what was foregone over the last 3 years. In addition to that, it also recommends an increase of 2% per year for the remainder of that 4-year term of office. We were reluctant to go higher than that, knowing again that we have contracts that will be negotiated next year. We don't need to get ahead of those contracts. If in fact there's an increase that's greater than that, we'll once again, be playing catch-up 4 years from now when we look at this again. But the 2% recommendation at least recognizes that in all likelihood, there will be some increase in everyone's compensation over the next 4 years. So, they, on page 2, you have the sheet that shows the analysis that went into that. It's got specific recommendations for the 6 elected officials at the bottom of that chart, and then the top 2 items are for the board chair and for the other commissioners.
Questions?
Anything you want to add to that?
Just a couple things. The key to remember is, well, you'll see a few dates in your review on things. We're supposed to set salaries at our annual meeting, which is next week. You have to have it between September 16th and October 16th. By statute, you have until November 1st, at a different statute, but then there's also been AG opinions that give you to the end of the year, if you really need it. So it's really a moving target on it. I mean, ideally, we get this done, move forward with the salary set. In your packet, you have a couple of resolutions that were drafts, very specifically drafts to throw out a few issues. They were reviewed from other counties. So it does lay out, for example, I had a department head, elected official, I'll reach out about their resolution because it didn't list like the health insurance and the other things, and they get the same thing that we as employees do, so there was no difference on that. But because you are structured for the 4 years, we had to put in everything that you would get. So it was a little different. So that's why you see the difference in the resolutions. But these, Luella pulled these together, and we're happy to address anything in there, any concerns. I know there was a concern raised by the Register about the per diems. Looking back over the past few years, they really haven't had a plat board. They met a little bit in '23, but haven't met much at all. I think the biggest issue would be in the clerk's office with canvassers, and they had 4 elections this year. So once again, that was taken from another county. I think they looked at it as they were getting a good increase, and that's something they would forego. It's typically during the day, but it's extra duties by statute. So that's why the per diem exist for those boards. So that's not something we can force them to give up. It is something that if they agree to forego it, and that's why the language was in there like that. But we were under a little bit of time. I would have liked, next time we do that, we'll reach out to the elected officials before this goes in our packet. We just didn't have a chance to do so. Besides that, I think Jim's thing, that wasn't meant to be county administrator. It really was supposed to be county managers on the elected officials resolution. And that's myself, Luella, other department heads, Meshia, Matt Ward, those type, you work a 40-hour a week is what the expectation is. Because with a lot of, not with all, but elected official could come in and say, hey, yeah, I'm here for 5 hours and then leave. There's really no, being elected that I have that ability. Now, probably won't go over well with the voters at that point, but we want to put that expectation in there. So that's why that language is in there. It doesn't mean the county administrator, it's county managers.
Okay. Question for Eric or questions for Dave? Hatfield.
So are we voting on, let's just take the commissioners, for example. We're gonna set this in stone at, right now, that number? Or the 14?
Today, we're making a recommendation to the board.
For 4
next
years.
week. But
Yeah.
For 4 years,
We have
it won't be a 3% increase for us, but it might be possibly, it could be for, down the road for the elected officials.
That is
We have
correct.
The ability.
That is correct. We don't have that ability with the commissioners.
Right, right, that's what I'm getting at.
Yep.
Is that it's just gonna be set in stone for us, 100%?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, although, Bob, if you look at it, it's not, look at the resolution. because the resolution shows that it increases by 2% per year.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this was, you're looking at the table that we
Yeah.
were looking at to start with, but it, following our discussions and
Okay.
the recommendation that we build in a slight increase in the last 3 years.
Yep.
That's where the numbers come from that are on the recommended.
I see it now,
resolution.
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this won't really affect me, but I thought I would just give my, an opinion on this. I would have liked to have seen maybe capping the commissioner's salary, but giving per diem for the additional meetings. I think that that's kind of standard for most of the counties around us. It encourages commissioners to attend the meetings, I think. And, you know, I'm on several of the kind of obscure committees, I guess I would say, of the board. And when I started attending those, it was obvious that not a lot of commissioners had attended them in many years, a number of these meetings. And I think if they had been paid a per diem, they would have felt more like an employee, that they had duties and would be more involved in those committees. And then you get paid for working instead of just a salary that you might not show up to those committees. And, you know, you're responsible for that salary, of doing something in order to earn it. That would be push comes to shove, I'm gonna probably agree with this. The rest of the board thinks this is okay, but I would think that a per diem is a good idea. We had it when I was on the board 32 years ago, probably when Commissioner Colton was chair, I imagine as well. And there was a move, I think, for all counties to eliminate it just out of bookkeeping, perhaps. But I think there's been a move back to it since. I only know of one county around us that does not have per diem that I'm aware of. I mean, just out of my mind.
We did talk about it. Frankly, there was no interest on the behalf of, on the part of the committee members to go back to that, recognizing that it is an additional administrative burden. And I would hope that we all recognize that part of what we're being paid for is in fact attending all of those meetings. Yeah, I recognize, you know, that when you're paid specifically for it, it may carry a little additional weight, but frankly, when I look around the table, I don't think that with most of us, if any of us, that's the case, because I know we're very diligent about participating in those meetings.
I agree with that. 100%. We all attend our meetings.
And you are correct. Most counties do have per diems, and it is an administrative stumbling block to record all that and get it all in, and who showed up for meetings and who didn't. I think, what did we say, Cass County was the only other county that didn't at this point. It simplifies the system for it, and hopefully we're moving towards better compensation. We're still under what Cass pays their commissioners who don't get per diems, but I know Eric had mentioned in some of his insight when he was looking at counties that, you know, county commissioners in other counties are making up to 20,000. I think someone sent me an article or an email that said Kalamazoo County is at 19, and somebody made the motion double it to 40. So it's not gonna go anywhere, but somebody made the motion or somebody made the discussion to double it, so.
Yeah, Kent County is 45.
45? So, so it depends on your duties as well in there, so. But we felt, looking at the system we have in place, that it would be not monumental, but it would take a lot of time to figure out each board per diems and just totally change systems at this point. Can we look at that in the future? I think we need to look at that a year or so prior to the end of this 4-year cycle to figure out if they want to do something like that. But in the meantime,
Am I
this has been
correct
working
that
for us.
that would be a policy that could be implemented at any point during the 4-year term?
No.
It couldn't, because it is literally,
It would increase our compensation.
Yeah.
is that correct?
Yeah, once
Okay.
you're set, like, by latest December 31st, please do not do that to us. You have to have your salary set going into the next 4 years. Now, with the 2-year term, obviously it would have been a little different. You could have had less time, but I think this will give you time to see how it works. Is it something you want to change in the future or not? And it gives you 3 years to see what other counties are doing. I think, I can't remember if it's the chair or somebody else said, I think the trend is that they are going away from per diem. Because sometimes, not to say you guys would ever do it, but it is sometimes fraught with fraud. I mean, sometimes I've seen commissioners say, yeah, I had a meeting that day, and 2 of them got together to chat, so they charge per diem. That was a different county, different time. But it's just, that's one of the things I think they were trying to get away from, going straight salary. But if that's something we want to look at, I'm absolutely, we did that this time. And we looked at their amounts, and we could do that. And we could get you more information, like actually how much per diem they're paying per commissioner next time.
Yep. Good information. Thank you, Mark. Commissioner Smelker?
If this comes up for a vote, I'm gonna vote for it, but I see that the chair makes a little bit more than the rest of us. I don't think it's enough. But my main concern there is our vice chair. Shouldn't he kinda get at least half more than what the chair gets? Because he steps in without a flaw, and I think the vice chair should be recognized too. But
thank you for the thought.
We are the only county, well, besides Cass, that didn't have a separation between vice chair and the rest of the board. But once again, it's worked for us. Cass pays everyone the same. Doesn't matter what position you have.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Carlton.
I know this is a separate discussion, but perhaps Vice Chair Hatfield, I would like to have the discussion on commissioner mileage. And that would need to go to the Personnel Committee first, I suppose.
What would be the question on mileage?
I mean, this is not this subject here, so I didn't know if you didn't want to get into it now.
It's
But
compensation.
the discussion that we don't pay mileage to local meetings. We pay mileage to these meetings and to our boards and such like that, but not to our township, village, city meetings. And that would be a discussion I'd like to have.
Okay.
That too will need to be done before the end of the year, because that is included in the compensation.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to, so that,
Yeah.
I didn't know if mileage also fit into that piece.
Yeah,
Now,
I believe it does, so if we're going to change that for the next term of office, it has to be done soon.
so I know in this discussion about commissioner pay, it wasn't December 31st, wasn't there an earlier deadline?
Yeah, we have an annual meeting set for next week, which typically is where we set salaries at. One section of statute says November 1st, but then there, as I mentioned, there's an AG opinion that gives you after November 1st if you need it.
So if there was going to be a discussion and possible change of commissioner mileage reimbursement, would that have to be done by November 1st?
I think, if I read the resolution that Luella drafted for you, it has mileage reimbursement allowed at per the rules of procedure, the commission's rules. So I think if you do that before the end of the year, I think that would cover you.
Okay. Luella, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I just have two comments, related to the, per diem discussion. I believe that when the per diems were paid in the past, those were just paid for the standing committee meetings.
Correct.
So the per diems were not paid for other meetings that you may go to. When you talk about, mileage to the township meetings, so you determine in your board rules that you set every January 1st what meetings you're gonna pay mileage for. So, I mean, that's something that you could change in your board rules. It's something that's never been included before, but if it's something that you wanted to include, I believe, and, you know, I wanna just touch base with the attorney to make sure, but I believe that you could still add that in your board rules after the first of the year, but it wouldn't necessarily count as increasing your compensation, because we've said in the resolution that the rate will be the IRS rate. So if that increases, decreases, that, you know.
It changes every year.
Right, that I think that that's covered. So I think that if you add that to the board rules as a meeting that's covered, I don't know that that's the same as increasing your compensation.
Actually,
But we can reach out.
looking at this article now, I see that I was mistaken. Mileage is not included in compensation. So if we change the board rules at any point to change the mileage rate or what mileage is applicable, that would be permissible, it would seem, because it's not included in compensation.
Luella, do you know the reason that they opted not to pay mileage for your township meetings?
I think historically, going way
Because
back,
it was before I was here
it
too,
was
9 years
something
ago,
that
so.
Commissioners didn't typically do, you know, and then it was kind of something that a few commissioners started, and pretty soon it kind of became expected, like, well, you know, they're going to their township. You know, I think it just evolved into that now. I think most of you go to all of those meetings if you can. Then it's probably, you know, it's a good thing. But that's kind of the history, I think, that it wasn't something that commissioners routinely were doing.
Okay. But that's a discussion we can have when we have our board rule discussion January 2nd. Okay?
And I think the same thing applies to if you ever go per diems. You know, what Luella said, your past practices, standing committees in this board, you can make it whatever you want it. I mean, if you're, like Commissioner Dosh's, like mental health board, those liaison, you could do that too if you want, but once again, not an issue that we're proposing at this time.
Okay. Additional discussion? Commissioner Campbell?
Although I've not been in favor of the Personnel and Human Services Committee, I'm sure everybody is aware of that. If not, you must not be attending. But I do feel that the committee has done an excellent job on this item. The only disagreement I have with it, I think the items that the Personnel and Human Services Committee take up should be at the pleasure of the entire board, not just one or two individuals deciding what to pick and choose out of what comes up. So that the Personnel and Human Services Committee would join together when the entire board feels there's a necessity, which this, hiring the administrator, et cetera, would fall under that category. I'm very pleased with what's happened here. Everything looks very good. I'm sure it was a lot of investigating, a lot of hard work to do that. And I like the idea that in the future, the elected officials aren't written in stone, so if we see unnecessary adjustment somewhere, we've got that authority to do it. So I'm happy with what I see here.
Thank you.
The only last comment I have on that, Mr. Chair, remember, you can't reduce salaries at all on elected officials. Once you set them, you can't go down at all and during their term. So just a reminder.
Thank you.
Not that I'm suggesting it. I just, if somebody gets mad at, I'm gonna pick on Sarah because she's here. Somebody gets mad at Sarah and goes, hey, you know, we don't like what she's doing, you can't cut her pay. So you're safe, she'd be safe for the next 4 years.
But if we're doing it on a year-to-year basis, we don't have to raise them either.
Right. And you don't have to raise them all the same amount. You can choose different numbers. It's just, you can't cut a salary.
Okay. Okay, Eric, do we need a motion to approve these numbers to move forward with them today? What are you looking for us? We've had the discussion.
I would suggest that you make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to approve the pay structure for both elected officials and Board of Commissioners if you're so inclined. And if you have any comments on the resolutions, to let us know and we'll make sure we update the draft for the BOC.
Need a motion on each resolution?
Do we, that's a question. Can we just do one to recommend? Okay.
I think you can do it either way.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to set the salaries for commissioners and other elected officials per the resolution submitted.
So moved, Doster.
Support, Hatfield.
Motion by Doster, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to set salaries for the commissioners and elected officials as noted in the resolutions. Additional discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Eric and Luella, for your work on compiling a lot of those numbers for us, giving us some things to crunch on and look at, so. All right. Limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public? Is there something else that I missed?
No, I'm going to do limited public comment.
Okay. Limited public comment. You're invited to do limited public comment.
Yeah, I'm a resident. Eric Zuzga, 4169 South Shore Drive,
There you
Delton.
go.
Is that your rental?
It would be 4153 South Shore Drive. Just a couple items, I just want to give you a heads up. 1014, City of Hastings will be having a tax hearing, or a hearing for the commercial rehab certification for the Royal Coach project. So basically, if that's approved, that they would freeze the taxable value on that property for a period of years as determined by the City of Hastings to encourage that redevelopment. I just wanted to give you that heads up. They're doing that at their commission meeting, their council meeting that night. A couple other small things from planning and zoning. We have 5 apps in for GIS position, so that's good. We'll be doing interviews probably middle of the month after I get back, which is a reminder, I'll be on vacation Friday through Tuesday. If you need anything, obviously Luella's here. In an emergency, I will have my phone on me. I will not be checking emails to the best of my ability. We also only have one application for the planning and zoning director. Applications were open, it's open until filled with the first review done at the end of this week. So I'm sure most of you know who the person is, so we'll see how that goes. I did talk to Commissioner Hatfield because he's representing the commission and the planning commission on that interview process if we have one. So we're gonna see how that goes. And then we will be putting in the solar grant for the Consumers Project here in the next few weeks. We didn't have to have it done by yesterday. Jim checked on that, so that's good news. So we will,
Wonderful.
that was just the end of the fiscal year, and as long as they still have money, they're gonna keep the project open. So as soon as we're able, we're gonna get that done, knocked out, so.
So the timeline was not September 30th,
That was just fiscal year ending.
fiscal year ending,
And
okay?
if they were out of money, then they were done.
Okay, and they're not out of money.
They're not out of money. Jim checked with them yesterday, so.
Good to know. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Oh, you guys are making this job easy sometimes. Commissioner
You don't pay
comments.
so much.
Commissioner Duster.
Just wanted to clarify that my picture was not on the cover of the Hastings banner last week. Many of you know that there is another Mark Doster who lives within 3 miles of me. My great-grandfather was a brother to his great-great-grandfather. So we're actually from 2 different generations, but he has been an exemplary police officer in the area. Many people know him. He usually saves people's lives and I get the credit for it. But,
So you're not going to be a school resource officer?
That
that's
is
what you're telling
correct.
me? Okay, okay. Noted. Commissioner Colton? Commissioner Getty? Commissioner Smelker?
I received an email yesterday or so, and it was addressed to Stephanie Lehman, and it says, "Congratulations, we have selected you as the 2024 Michigan APCO Director of the Year for the state of Michigan." So congratulations
She's
to
the nominee,
Stephanie.
correct? Great work, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Vice Chair Hatfield?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Campbell?
I just want to thank anybody that showed up at the huge community auction at the VFW post on Saturday. Commissioner Doster was there. I didn't see if he loaded his truck or not on the way out, but appreciate you being there. It was a good day.
I got a vein full, yes.
It was a good day.
Yes, and thanks for you and the VFW for participating in that event. Great community event. So, Commissioner Dennison?
I'd like to see us, as a board, talk about, front of the court building over there, about possibly getting the windows in there before the end of the year. Because there's kind of, I talked to Eric a little bit about it, he's gonna check with Jeff, but I know they've got some bids on it. But if we let it go another year, who knows what the cost's gonna be? Okay, and I know we don't know what we wanna do with it over there. I mean, we're gonna have to have discussion on that, but we're gonna do something with it, obviously, right?
Mhm.
So,
It is definitely one of the things on our radar that Eric and I have already talked about as far as moving that project forward.
right.
We could make it an open-air building and take the windows out, you know, that'll save some money, so, you know, but be a little chilly.
On that one, Jeff said don't hold your breath on getting it done this year, but he was gonna check. So he was
Okay.
gonna let me know after the meeting.
Okay.
So, no, it's definitely one of the things that's on our list of things to do.
Yeah, I know.
So, there are a few, but that's one of the priorities, so.
I did forget.
You wanna bring up
Yes.
about that, MAC conference, John?
Yeah, that's what I forgot to talk about. It's been a week since I went, you know. Went to the MAC conference in Traverse City, brought back some flyers on what concerns our MAC organization on what's coming up in the lame duck session of Congress. And I've got the flyers around here somewhere. I gave Dave some and Catherine some. And it's statewide septic. Charge the owner on some pollution, and I think there's 5 different ones there. Yeah, polluter pay, earned sick time, minimum wage, unfunded mandates, public safety, staff shortages, and revenue sharing. And it did look like the only plus in this whole thing is our revenue sharing did go up a little bit. So, but if anybody wants any of these, we can get these copied.
Yep, good articles, good information, and thank you for attending.
Mhm.
I have nothing. I will also be absent next week, so I will miss you a little, and I'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. So, thank you.
Revisit that.